My name is Laura Norton, and I'm 26 years old. 3 weeks ago, at the graduation dinner my mother had spent months planning, my brother grabbed the microphone and announced in front of the entire family, "The DNA results are in. You and cousin Haley are full sisters." My mother didn't scream. She didn't deny it. She dug her nails into my arm until it bled and hissed through a perfect smile. "Keep smiling, you ungrateful little mistake. Your grandparents just walked in. They still don't know who your real father is. Don't you dare ruin everything I've built for you." I help families untangle their darkest secrets for a living. Turns out I'd never untangled my own, but I kept every single receipt. And what they discovered after that night turned their carefully constructed lie completely upside down. Before I take you back to the beginning of the end, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now and what time is it? I love reading those. Let me take you back to the beginning of the end. The restaurant was called Elliston's. My mother had booked the private room 6 weeks in advance. She chose the wine. She printed place cards in gold ink, each one hand-lettered in her perfect cursive, every seat accounted for. She even rehearsed a toast on index cards she kept folded in her purse. I'd found her practicing in the bathroom mirror 2 days before, mouthing the words with her eyes closed, the way some people practice prayers. When I asked if I could invite a couple of friends from my graduate cohort, she looked at me like I'd suggested inviting strangers to Thanksgiving. "This is a family evening, Laura. It's about us." Us. That word used to feel like a warm blanket. Now I know it was offense. The private room was set for 12. My grandparents, Gerald and Donna Aldridge, were running 15 minutes late. My father, Scott, sat at the far end of the table in his usual position, present but optional. He was doing what he always did at family events, sitting quietly, letting my mother run things, occasionally nodding at something no one had actually said. My brother Tyler was leaning against the wall near the emergency exit, jacket off, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, looking at his phone. He'd come straight from a job site. There was still drywall dust in his hair. My mother had asked him 3 times to change into something nicer. He hadn't. Tyler and I weren't close. My mother had made sure of that over the years. The way you'd make sure 2 chemicals don't touch in a lab. Since we were kids, he'd been the difficult one, the one who talked back at the table, the one who quit trade school for 6 months before getting his electrician's license, the one my mother sighed about at every family dinner while smiling at me. I was the other one. National Honor Society, full scholarship, master's degree in social work, the first person in our family to finish graduate school. My mother had the diploma framed before I even unpacked from the ceremony. I didn't know yet that I was a product on display, not a daughter being raised, a centerpiece being polished. My mother stood to give her toast. She held those index cards steady, her rings catching the light from the fake chandeliers. She talked about sacrifice, about building something that lasts, about how every decision she'd ever made was for this family, this table, this moment. Her voice cracked on the word family, and the guests reached for their napkins, moved. I remember thinking how beautiful it sounded. Then Tyler pushed off the wall. He didn't wait for her to finish. He didn't raise his hand. He walked across the room, took the wireless microphone from the stand near the projector screen, and said 5 words that stopped the room. "Sorry to interrupt, everyone." My mother's face didn't change. It went flat. Not angry, not surprised. Flat. The way a screen goes dark right before a system crash. "I got a DNA test done," Tyler said. His voice was steady, like a man who'd rehearsed this in his truck on the way over. "Mine and Lara's. We're half siblings, different fathers." He let that land. Then I tested Lara's DNA against cousin Haley's. Full match. Same mother, same father. Lara and Haley aren't cousins. He looked around the room. They're sisters. Nobody moved. My father's hand froze halfway to his water glass. My mother's lips parted, but no sound came out for 3 full seconds. And my mother always had a sound. She always had the next sentence ready. That silence was louder than anything Tyler had said. Then the front door chimed. My grandparents walked in. Gerald in his brown cardigan, Donna carrying a wrapped gift. My mother's hand shot across the table and clamped down on my forearm. Her nails broke skin. She leaned in close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something floral, something expensive, something she wore to church and funerals, and apparently to the moment her entire architecture collapsed. "Your grandparents don't know who your father really is," she whispered. "If you say one word right now, you will destroy everything I built. Everything." She didn't say she was sorry. She didn't say Tyler was wrong. She didn't say the DNA was a mistake. She told me to keep smiling. I looked down at the crescents her nails had left in my skin. 4 tiny half-moons, already filling with blood. I didn't say anything, not because she told me not to, because I needed to decide what to do next. The rest of that dinner was a controlled demolition performed with cloth napkins and salmon. My mother pulled Tyler into the hallway. I could hear her through the door. Not yelling. Never yelling. Christine Norton didn't yell. She administered. Her voice was level and precise, the way she spoke to the dental office staff when someone double-booked an appointment. "You're going to walk back in there," she said, "and tell everyone the results were unreliable. You found a forum online that said home DNA kits have a 30% error rate. You'll say you're sorry for ruining your sister's evening. You'll sit down. You'll eat your dinner." Tyler left through the back exit. He didn't apologize. He didn't sit down. My grandparents ate their salmon and asked why everyone was so quiet. My mother smiled, that automatic, gallery-ready smile, and said Tyler had eaten something that didn't agree with him. She said it without blinking. In the parking lot afterward, she cornered me between 2 cars. My father stood 8 feet away, hands deep in his jacket pockets, studying the asphalt like it was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. "Tyler has always been jealous of you," my mother said. "You know that. He didn't go to college. He works with his hands. He's always resented your success. This is his way of destroying your moment." I listened. I didn't argue. "If you talk to him," she continued, her voice dropping to the tone she used when she was issuing instructions she expected to be followed. "If you encourage this, you're choosing his side. And you know what happens when someone in this family chooses wrong." I knew exactly what happened. You stopped getting invited. You stopped getting calls. You stopped existing in the family group text. You became a name people mentioned with a sigh and a head shake, the way they mentioned Aunt Tammy. The system didn't punish you, it erased you. I drove home alone. At a red light on Burnside, I picked up my phone. One text message, from Haley. "I always thought we looked too much alike to be just cousins." I stared at that text for 45 seconds. Not at the words. At the timestamp. She'd sent it 11 minutes before Tyler grabbed the microphone. Haley already knew something was wrong. She'd known for a while. And she hadn't said a word. Because in our family, you didn't say words like that. Not if you wanted to keep existing. I called Haley that night from my apartment, sitting cross-legged on my bed with the lights off. We had never talked one-on-one for more than 5 minutes in our entire lives. Our mothers didn't arrange it. Our holiday schedules didn't overlap. Now I was beginning to understand that none of that was accidental. She picked up on the first ring, like she'd been waiting. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm not sure yet," I said. "Tell me about your mom." A long pause. Then, "She cries? A lot?" Whenever anyone mentions your side of the family, Portland, Grandma Donna, holidays, she goes quiet, and then she goes to her room. When I was little, I thought she was just homesick. "Does she say why she doesn't visit more?" She used to dodge the question. But when I was about 15, I pushed her on it, and she said something I never forgot. Haley's voice got careful, the way you handle something fragile. She said, "Your aunt doesn't want me there." Those exact words. I thought they'd had some big falling out over money or something. That was the first real crack in the story I'd been told my entire life. My mother's version: Tammy moved to Reno for a job opportunity. A fresh start after a rough patch. She said it so often and so casually and so consistently that it had become family wallpaper. Something you stopped seeing because it was always there. But Haley was telling me something entirely different. She was telling me Tammy didn't leave. She was kept away. I texted Tyler at midnight. "I need to see what you found." Tyler's apartment smelled like sawdust and instant coffee. He had tools on the kitchen counter, work boots by the door, and a Captain America mug he'd owned since high school. He poured me coffee and set a cardboard box on the table. "Mom asked me to help her downsize last spring," he said, pulling up a chair that scraped against the linoleum. "Move stuff from the basement. Old Christmas decorations, tax files, boxes of junk. Behind the water heater, underneath a tarp, there was a lockbox. Combination lock. Took me 2 tries. Her birthday. Backward." He opened the box. Inside, a manila folder, rubber banded shut. Inside the folder, several documents. The first one stopped my breathing. My birth certificate. I'd seen a copy before, the one in my mother's filing cabinet upstairs, the one she'd handed me when I needed it for college applications. That version listed Scott Robert Norton as my father. This one was different. The original, issued by the hospital. The line next to father was blank. I set it down on the table. My hands were steady. I'd read hundreds of documents like this in my work. Intake forms, legal filings, custody agreements. I knew what a blank father line meant on an original certificate. It meant the mother chose not to name a father. It meant there was a reason not to. "There's more," Tyler said. He pulled out a letter. Handwritten on ruled paper, folded into thirds, creased so many times the ink had started to crack along the folds. Addressed to Christine Norton. Return address: Reno, Nevada. Postmarked 23 years ago. The handwriting was small and deliberate. "Christine, you cannot keep me away from my own family forever. I've stayed silent because you told me to. I've stayed in Reno because you told me to. But I am not the one who should be hiding. I know what really happened. And if you don't let me see them, I will find another way." Tammy. I read it twice. Then a third time, slower. The way I read court documents when something doesn't add up. My own family. Not my daughter. Not Haley. My own family. Tyler pointed to the bottom of the box. 3 empty envelopes. All postmarked from Reno, spaced over several years. All opened. All empty. "Someone read them," he said, "and kept the envelopes but took the letters out. Except for this one, the one where Tammy threatened to find another way. My mother didn't keep that letter because it was meaningful to her. She kept it because it was leverage, a record of Tammy making threats, in case she ever needed to use it against her." I sat in Tyler's kitchen for a long time, turning the letter over in my hands. He didn't rush me. He fixed his coffee. He waited. "She wasn't hiding a mistake," I said. "She was running a system." Tyler nodded. "I've known something was off since I was 15. She told everyone I was the problem kid, the troublemaker. And yeah, I was angry. But I was angry because nothing in that house felt real. I just couldn't prove it until I opened that box. At this point, I thought I was just dealing with a family secret. If you grew up in a family where everyone protected the lie instead of the child, you already know what's coming. Drop a comment if this feels familiar. My mother called the next morning at 7:45. She had what I call her management voice, warm on the surface, ice underneath. The voice she used when she wanted something to sound like nothing. "Morning, sweetheart. Just checking in. Are you eating? Sleeping okay?" "Fine, Mom." "Good. Because I talked to a few people about those DNA tests, and honestly, Tyler's little stunt? Those home kits have documented error rates. I'm looking into it with a colleague. We might even have grounds to—" "Mom." "What? Did you know? About the DNA?" Silence. 1 full second. 2. "Know what, honey?" She didn't say no. She didn't say, "That's absurd." She said, "Know what?" As in, which of the several things she might need to deny was I asking about? She needed to select the right response from her menu. "Nothing," I said, thinking out loud. "Lara, listen to me. Don't let Tyler get inside your head. He has always been like this. Resentful, destructive. You know who he is." I knew who she'd told me he was. That's not the same thing. After she hung up, I opened the small notebook I carry in my bag, the same one I use for client intake notes at work. I turned to a blank page and wrote one line. She didn't deny it. She managed it. I drove to my grandparents' house that afternoon. Gerald was in the front yard, watering hydrangeas with the hose, same as always. Inside, Donna was making lemon bars. The kitchen smelled like butter and powdered sugar, and something that felt like a lie dressed up as a childhood memory. "How are you holding up after that dinner, honey?" Donna asked, pressing dough into a pan. "Your mother explained everything. Tyler's always had trouble with, you know, social situations." "Grandma," I said, "can I ask you something about Aunt Tammy?" Donna's hands paused over the pan, just for a beat. Then she went back to pressing. "What about her? Why did she move to Reno?" "Oh, that was years ago." She waved a floury hand. "Your mother said Tammy needed a fresh start. She was going through a rough patch. Relationship trouble, I think. We supported the decision." I looked toward the doorway. Gerald was standing there, still holding the hose nozzle. The water had stopped running. "I remember it different," he said. Donna looked up. "She was crying, Donna, when she came here with her suitcase. She stood right there in the kitchen and she was crying. She didn't want to leave." "Gerald, that was—" "Christine said it was the best thing. We believed her." He turned the hose nozzle in his hands. "We always believed her. She was always the one with the plan." He went back outside. The screen door banged shut behind him. Donna watched him go. Then she looked at me, and I recognized the expression on her face because I see it every week in my office. The first hairline fracture in a belief system that's held for decades. Not denial, not acceptance. Just the beginning of a question she'd spent 24 years refusing to ask. "Tammy was always fine," Donna said, but her voice went up at the end, like the sentence had betrayed her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went to the hall closet where my mother kept the overflow. Extra linens, holiday decorations, and 3 leather-bound photo albums she'd assembled when I was growing up. The albums she set on the coffee table every Thanksgiving to show relatives how happy the Norton family was. I pulled them down and sat cross-legged on my kitchen floor at 2 in the morning. Album 1. Lara's first 5 years. I turned the pages slowly. 6 months old, propped on a blanket. 1-year-old, being held at what looked like a park. 18 months, laughing in a high chair. I stopped. In every photo from birth to age 2, Aunt Tammy was there, holding me, feeding me, sitting on a porch swing with me curled in her lap. In one photo, she was asleep on the living room couch with baby me sleeping on her chest, one of my tiny hands gripping the collar of her shirt. I turned the page. Age 3. Tammy was gone. Not in a single photo. Not from age 3 through 26. Birthday parties, Christmases, 4th of July barbecues, school plays, the same faces cycled through every image. Mom, Dad, Tyler, Grandma, Grandpa. No Tammy, no Haley. Not once. The erasure wasn't gradual. It was surgical. One page, she was in every frame. Next page, she didn't exist. The last photo with Tammy was dated the spring I turned 2. The same season my mother told everyone that Tammy needed a fresh start. My mother hadn't just sent her away. She'd edited her out of the record. These albums, the ones she showed guests, the ones she displayed when company came over, were curated proof of a family that had never included Tammy Aldridge at all. I put the albums back in the closet. I closed the door. I didn't take them as evidence, but I needed to see them. The way you need to trace the walls of a cage with your hands before you understand just how long you've been inside it. I called Aunt Tammy from my car, parked on a side street 3 blocks from my grandparents' house. She picked up on the 7th ring and didn't say hello, just breathed. "Aunt Tammy, it's Lara." More breathing. Then, very quietly, "You shouldn't be calling me sweetheart. I know about the DNA. I know Haley and I are." "Lara." Her voice was vibrating. "Your mother will find out you called me. She always finds out." That hit differently than I expected. Not, "Your mother will be upset." Not, "She won't approve." She always finds out. Present tense, active, ongoing. 26 years later, and my aunt was still talking about my mother the way people talk about surveillance cameras. "Aunt Tammy, I found a letter you wrote 23 years ago. I found my real birth certificate. The father line is blank. I know what it says." She was crying. Not the loud kind, the practiced kind. The kind you learn when you've been crying quietly for over 2 decades because you trained yourself to make no noise. "Lara, honey, I have wanted to tell you every single day since you were born. But Christine, your mother, she told me if I ever said anything, she would go to your grandparents and tell them that I was the one who—" She stopped. "That you were the one who what?" "That I was the one who went after him. That I pursued him. That I was the homewrecker." Her voice splintered. "That everything was my fault. She said she'd make sure Mom and Dad never spoke to me again. And I believed her, because she'd already gotten them to send me away once." The line went dead. I sat in my car and stared at the phone screen going dark. My reflection stared back. My aunt had been afraid of my mother for 26 years. Not because of what happened, because of the story my mother would tell about what happened. Christine Norton didn't keep secrets. She weaponized them. The next morning, I drove back to my grandparents' house. I'd spent the night organizing what I knew: the birth certificate, the letter, what Tammy had told me. I was going to lay it all out for Gerald and Donna. Calm, factual. The way I present case notes at work. But when I walked through the front door, something had changed. Donna was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. Gerald was in his recliner, arms folded. They both looked at me with the careful, concerned expression of people who'd recently been briefed by someone they trusted. "Lara, sweetheart," Donna said. "Sit down, we need to talk." I sat. "Your mother came by this morning, early, before breakfast." Donna folded her hands. She explained everything. About Tyler and the DNA tests. About how he's been... Well, she said he's been struggling with his mental health. She said he went to some unreliable website and got a test kit, and the results were, not real. She said he forged some documents to make it look worse. My stomach went cold. She said you might come by with some papers. She said Tyler has been filling your head with conspiracy theories because he's always resented your success. Donna reached across the table and took my hand. "Honey, please don't let your brother pull you into this. He's always been the one who stirs the pot. You're smarter than this." I glanced at Gerald. He was staring at the carpet, jaw tight. He wasn't speaking, but he wasn't agreeing either. My mother had gotten there first. She'd driven to this house before sunrise and installed the narrative. Tyler forged documents. Lara is being manipulated. The system is intact. Trust me. This was what she did. What she'd always done. She didn't wait for problems to arrive. She built the levees before the flood. She didn't respond to crises. She scheduled them. 26 years of showing up first, speaking first, framing the conversation before anyone else could open their mouths. I squeezed Donna's hand. "You're probably right, Grandma," I said. "I'm just stressed." I drove home. I sat in the car for 15 minutes, both hands on the steering wheel. If I showed my grandparents the evidence now, without Tammy standing there in person, without an answer for every excuse my mother had preloaded, I would just be the confused granddaughter siding with the troubled brother. My mother had turned my grandparents into a wall, a shield she could stand behind. I needed evidence she couldn't explain away. I needed Tammy to say the words to their faces, and I needed to stop trying to outrun my mother, because she would always get there first. I opened my notebook and wrote one line. Stop racing her. Be ready instead. Over the next 2 days, I did what I'm trained to do. I investigated. I logged into the family phone plan online. The shared account my mother set up when Tyler and I were teenagers. She still used it. Same login, same password. She never changed it because it never occurred to her that anyone in this family would look behind the curtain. I pulled the call records from the night of graduation and the following morning. 3 calls within 40 minutes of Tyler's announcement. The first 2 went to the same number, an office downtown. I looked it up. Carmichael and Rhodes, estates and trusts. Not a therapist, not a family counselor. An estate lawyer who specializes in wills and inheritance disputes. My mother's first move after the DNA reveal wasn't damage control for the family. It wasn't reaching out to me. It wasn't calling Tyler to scream or cry or beg. She called a lawyer to ask about the will. The third call was to Tammy's number. 4 minutes, 18 seconds. I didn't need the recording to know what that conversation sounded like. I kept scrolling. The records showed something else. My mother had been checking the call log on my line. She could see every number I dialed, every call I made. She'd been watching my calls since graduation night. That's how she knew I'd called Tammy. Not instinct, not paranoia. Data. I called Tammy again that afternoon. She picked up. This time she talked. Slowly and carefully, like someone stepping onto frozen water they weren't sure would hold. She told me about meeting a man when she was 21. A short relationship. A few months. Nothing serious. He moved on. So did she. Then Christine met the same man. She knew he'd been with Tammy first. She pursued him anyway. "That's how you were born, Lara," Tammy said. "Christine was the one who went after him, not me. But when she realized she was pregnant and the baby wasn't Scott's, she needed someone to blame. And I was convenient." Tammy paused. I could hear her breathing. 2 years after you were born, she came to my apartment and told me I had to leave Portland. She said it was too dangerous having me nearby. She said if Haley and you grew up in the same neighborhood, someone would eventually notice you look alike. She told our parents I needed a change of scenery. They believed her because they always believed her. She was the one who organized Christmas. She was the one who kept the calendar. She was the responsible daughter. "What about Dad?" I asked. "Scott. Did he know?" "She told him when you were about 2. By then he'd already bonded with you. She said if he left, she'd take both kids and he'd never see Tyler again either. So he stayed. And he's been staying ever since." I heard Tammy's phone buzz in the background. She went silent. "Lara," she whispered. "She just called me, right now, while we were talking. She knows I'm on the phone with you." "How?" "She's on the same phone plan, honey. She can see who you're talking to." Another buzz. "I have to go." She texted me. She said, Tammy's voice cracked. She said if I meet with you, she'll call Mom and Dad and tell them I'm the one who destroyed the family. She'll tell them everything was my fault. The same thing she's been holding over me for 26 years. The line went dead. Again. Silence. My mother had already gotten to my grandparents. She'd just shut down my aunt mid-sentence. She was 2 steps ahead of me at every turn, but I had something she didn't know about yet. Can you guess what it was? That night, after Tammy hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and did something I probably should have done earlier. I logged into the family email account. My mother had set up a shared Gmail years ago for family coordination, holiday planning, travel schedules, shared grocery lists. She'd made herself the administrator. She'd given me a login when I was 16 so I could access the shared calendar. I went to the archive folder, then the spam folder. It took me 20 minutes, but I found them. 11 emails from Tammy to lara.norton@gmail.com, my personal email, not the family account. Birthday wishes, a congratulations for getting into grad school. A note saying she'd seen my photo on Facebook and I looked so grown up. Simple, warm, human messages from an aunt trying to reach her niece. Every single one had been forwarded to the family account by Christine, and then routed to spam. My mother had set up a filter on the family email that automatically redirected any email from Tammy's address. She'd done it 7 years ago, based on the filter's creation date. My mother wasn't just intercepting physical mail, she'd built digital walls too. Every channel Tammy could possibly use to contact me, mail, email, phone, had been filtered, blocked, or monitored. I screenshotted the filter settings. I screenshotted the archived emails. I saved everything to a folder on my desktop labeled Case Notes, the same label I use for client files. Then I closed the laptop and packed a bag. If Tammy couldn't come to the truth, I was going to bring the truth to her. I left Portland at 4 in the morning, before sunrise, before my mother could check the phone plan and see my GPS heading south on I-5. 8 hours to Reno. That's a lot of highway and a lot of time to think. Somewhere around Klamath Falls, I thought about the birthday cards. Tammy said she'd sent one every year. I never received a single one. Not one card in 26 years. I pulled a memory out of the back of my mind. The kind of memory you store without knowing it matters. I was 10 years old. A package arrived at our house. Brown paper wrapping. Reno postmark. I was excited because nobody ever sent me mail. I started tearing the paper. My mother took it out of my hands. "Aunt Tammy sent the wrong thing," she said. "I'll handle it." She dropped it in the kitchen trash, right on top of the wet coffee grounds. I watched her do it. Then she wiped her hands on a dish towel and went back to unloading the dishwasher like nothing happened. That was one card, one package. Multiply it by 26. I got to Reno at noon. Tammy's apartment was on the 2nd floor of a stucco building off Virginia Street. Small, clean, with a single potted geranium on the balcony. The kind of apartment you end up in when your older sister reroutes your life at 23, and you have to rebuild from nothing in a city where you know nobody. She opened the door in scrubs. She worked as a dental hygienist. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. She'd been done crying by the time I got there. She'd probably been done crying for years. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I'm already here." She stepped aside. The apartment was small enough that I could see the whole thing from the doorway. Kitchen, living room, 1 bedroom. On the bookshelf, a framed photo of Haley's high school graduation. Next to it, a smaller frame, the kind you buy at a drugstore. A photo I'd never seen before. A baby, about 1 year old, held by a younger Tammy. The baby was me. "She was going to let me keep you," Tammy said from behind me, "for the first year." Christine wasn't sure she wanted to deal with a baby. She was still working, and Scott didn't know yet. So I fed you, changed you, walked you to sleep. For 12 months, you were mine. She sat down on the couch. Then she changed her mind. She said she needed you back. She told everyone I was going through a mental health episode and couldn't be trusted with a child. She took you. And 2 years later, she sent me here. I sat down across from her. Tell me everything, I said. From the beginning. And I need you to tell me one more thing. What? Will you come to Portland? Will you say this to my grandparents' faces? In their house? Tammy looked at the photo of baby me on the shelf. She looked at me, 26 years older, sitting on her couch in Reno. I've been waiting 24 years for someone to knock on that door, she said. Yes, I'll come. Before I left, she went to her bedroom and came back carrying a shoebox. Inside, 26 sealed birthday cards, addressed to me, stamped, never sent. Because after the first few came back unopened or never arrived, she stopped trusting the mail and just kept writing them. 26 cards for a niece she'd raised for the first year of her life, and then lost. I wrote them anyway, she said. Even when I knew they wouldn't reach you. I held the box against my chest like it was something alive. Back in Portland, I spread everything on my apartment floor the way I arrange case files at work. Chronologically, left to right. Birth certificate, Tammy's first letter, the second letter documenting Christine's threat. Tyler's DNA results. Call log showing Christine calling the estate lawyer after graduation. Phone plan records showing Christine tracking my calls. The shoebox of 26 birthday cards. 7 pieces of evidence. 26 years of architecture. I called Grandpa Gerald. I want to have a family dinner, I said. At your house, Sunday night, just to clear the air. I'll bring the food. He said yes without hesitation. I didn't invite my mother. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what would happen. Grandma Donna would mention it to Christine. Donna always told Christine everything. That was the system. And for the first time, I was going to use the system against the woman who built it. I texted Tyler. Sunday dinner at Grandma's. Bring everything. 12 seconds later. Everything? Everything? Everything. Saturday night, I lay in bed with the lights off, my heart doing that slow, thick thud it does before something irreversible. I picked up my phone and looked at the graduation photo. My mother standing next to me, one hand on my shoulder, smiling at the camera. She looked proud. She looked like a woman who'd given everything for her daughter's success. She'd organized my entire life the way she organized that dinner. Every seat assigned, every guest managed, every card hand-lettered. Tomorrow, I was going to rearrange the seats. Sunday, I got to my grandparents' house early. Set the table for 7. Made pot roast. Gerald's favorite. Tyler arrived first, carrying a manila folder under his arm. Haley came next. She'd driven up from Reno with Tammy. They sat in Haley's car for nearly 10 minutes before coming inside. I watched through the kitchen window. Tammy was gripping the dashboard with both hands. Haley was holding her wrist. They came through the back door. Tammy walked into my grandparents' kitchen and stopped. She looked at the countertops, the window over the sink, the fridge covered in photos. Me, Tyler, the church grandkids. No photos of Haley. None of Tammy. 24 years, she said. This kitchen smells exactly the same. Gerald came from the hall. He saw Tammy and went still. Then he crossed the kitchen in 4 steps and wrapped his arms around his younger daughter. He didn't say anything. He just held on. Donna appeared in the doorway. Her face cycled through surprise, confusion, and then that careful, controlled blankness she wore when she wasn't sure what Christine would want her to think. Tammy? What? Christine didn't say you were... Christine doesn't know, I said. 20 minutes later, the front door opened without a knock. My mother walked in wearing a blue cardigan and pearl earrings, lipstick on, purse on her arm. She looked like a woman arriving to chair a committee meeting, which is exactly what she believed she was doing. She scanned the room the way a general surveys a battlefield. Tyler at the table, Haley beside him, Gerald in his chair, Donna by the stove, me at the window. Then she saw Tammy. I have watched hundreds of people receive unexpected information in my career. Doctors' offices, courtrooms, intake sessions. I have never seen a mask slip the way my mother's did in that half second. Underneath the composure, underneath the lipstick and the pearls, there was something bare and cornered and absolutely furious. It lasted half a second. Then the mask clicked back. She sat down, smoothed her napkin, folded her hands. "Well," she said, "it's good that everyone is here. We clearly need to have a conversation. Tyler," she turned to my brother with a look of measured patience, "I hope you've had some time to reconsider what you did at the restaurant. It was hurtful and irresponsible, and I think a sincere apology to your sister would be a good starting." "Mom," she stopped. I reached into the folder beside my chair and pulled out the first document. I placed it face up on the table in front of Gerald. My birth certificate. The real one. Father's line. Blank. "This was in your lockbox," I said. "In the basement. The version you gave me for college had Dad's name typed in. This is the original." Gerald picked it up. "Read it. Read it again." Donna leaned over his shoulder. The kitchen was silent except for the pot roast timer ticking on the stove. My mother's hand moved to her water glass. She didn't drink. She just wrapped her fingers around it. "That's a paperwork error," she said. Her voice was level, measured. "Hospitals lose things. I had it corrected later, which is why the copy you used for college." I pulled out Tammy's letter. 23 years old. "You cannot keep me away from my own family forever." Then the second letter. Tammy's written account of what Christine had said to her. "If you say a word, I'll tell Mom and Dad you were the one who threw yourself at him." I placed them side by side on the table. Donna picked up the first letter. Her lips moved as she read. Then her hand went to her throat. "Christine." Her voice was barely audible. "You said these things? To your own sister?" "That letter is over 20 years old," Christine said. She hadn't raised her voice. She never raised her voice. Tammy was in a fragile state at the time. She was exaggerating. "You know how emotional she—" No. Gerald was standing. His hands were flat on the table, pressing down like he was keeping himself from floating away. "Tammy cried the day she left this house," he said. "I have remembered that for 24 years. She stood in this kitchen with a suitcase and she was crying. You told us it was for her own good. You said she was struggling." He looked at Donna. I never fully believed it. I just never said so. The room tilted. Gerald on one side, Christine on the other. And between them, 24 years of silence giving way like a wall of sand. My father spoke. Scott had been sitting at the end of the table with his hands in his lap, doing what he'd done at every family gathering for as long as I could remember, being present without participating, the way furniture is present. But now he looked at me with wet eyes and a voice I'd never heard him use. "Lara is not my biological daughter," he said. "I've known since she was 2. Christine told me then. She said if I ever left, she'd make sure I never saw Tyler again. So I stayed. And I've been staying." He rubbed his face with both hands. "I'm sorry. I should have said something 24 years ago." I watched my mother. For 5 seconds, I counted. Christine Norton sat perfectly still. The woman who had managed every conversation, curated every holiday, intercepted every piece of mail, controlled every seat at every table for 26 years, sat motionless and said nothing. Tyler pulled out the last documents. The handwritten list. Christine's writing. From the lockbox. Lara's school events. Invite mom and dad. Tammy, do not include. Haley, limit visits to 1 time per year max. Christmas, rotate schedule so tea never overlaps with graduation/birthday. He placed it on the table. I placed the call log beside it. 3 calls highlighted. Carmichael and Rhodes, estate attorneys. 40 minutes after graduation. You called a lawyer about the will, I said, before you called your daughter. Christine looked at the documents spread across the table. Birth certificate, letters, the list, the call log, every piece of a system she'd spent 26 years constructing. Then Tammy stood up. She'd been sitting near the doorway with her hands in her lap, exactly the way she'd been sitting for 24 years, quiet, out of the way, close to the exit. But now she rose, and when she spoke, her voice wasn't shaking. I was 23 when you sent me away, she said, looking at Christine. I had a 1-year-old daughter and no money. You came to my apartment and told me if I stayed in Portland, you would go to mom and dad and tell them I was the homewrecker, that I went after him, that everything was my fault. She looked at Donna. Mom, she told you I chose to leave. I didn't choose. I begged her to let me stay. She told me that if I didn't go quietly, she'd destroy me in front of you. She paused. I send Lara a birthday card every single year. For 26 years, Christine intercepted everyone. When I started mailing them to this house, she found a way to stop them. I have 26 sealed cards in a shoebox that never reached anyone. Donna was crying, face crumpled, shoulders shaking, the kind of crying that doesn't care about dignity. I stood. You didn't protect this family, I said, looking at my mother. You built a cage and called it home. You made Tyler the villain so no one would believe him if he ever found out. You sent Tammy away so Haley and I would never stand side by side long enough for anyone to notice we have the same face. You kept Dad quiet with guilt. You kept Grandma and Grandpa in the dark by being the one who organized every holiday, every phone call, every visit. I paused. And you invested in me, not because you believed in me, but because you needed me to be your evidence, your exhibit. Look at Lara, top of her class. Our family is doing just fine. I was the proof that nothing was wrong. I set my hands flat on the table. I'm done being your proof. Christine opened her mouth. Everything I did was for this family. Nobody responded. Gerald turned his back to her. Donna was clutching Tammy's arm. Scott had moved to stand near me. Haley reached across the table and took my hand. Tyler stood behind Tammy like a wall. My mother sat alone at a table she'd spent 26 years arranging. She picked up her purse. She straightened her cardigan. She walked to the front door, opened it, and closed it behind her. Nobody followed. Gerald sat down slowly and put his face in his hands. Donna rocked back and forth, holding Tammy like something she'd lost at sea and just found washed ashore. We believed her, Donna said. Every time. We always believed her. I know, Mom, Tammy said. It's not your fault. But it was. A little. And everyone in the room knew it. The kind of fault that comes from looking the other way because looking straight ahead was too uncomfortable. The kind of fault that accumulates silently over 24 years of trusting the wrong daughter. Donna pulled back and looked at Haley. Really looked at her. Maybe for the first time. She reached out and touched Haley's face. You have Tammy's chin, she said. Then she started crying again because she was looking at a granddaughter she'd spent 24 years treating like a distant relative. Haley didn't say anything. She just let her grandmother hold her hand. She'd been on the outside her entire life. She didn't know how to be on the inside yet. Scott stood across the room, hands at his sides. The posture of a man who had just voluntarily dismantled the only structure he'd lived inside for 24 years and was standing in the rubble trying to figure out which piece to pick up first. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. "You don't fix 24 years," I said. "You just start from here." He nodded. Then he looked at the empty chair where Christine had been sitting, and something crossed his face. Not relief, not anger, exhaustion. The bone-deep tiredness of a man who had been holding his breath for 2 decades and just let it out. I walked over to Tyler. He was sitting in the corner. Same posture as the graduation dinner, same rolled-up sleeves, same position near the exit. "Thank you," I said. He looked up. "Everyone's going to say I did it wrong, that I shouldn't have done it at the restaurant, that I should have pulled you aside and told you privately." "Maybe," I said. "But if you'd told me privately, she would have gotten to me before I could process it. She would have managed me the way she manages everyone. You did it the only way she couldn't control." Something shifted in his jaw. A tension releasing. The way a knot loosens when you stop pulling from both ends and just cut it. She called me the difficult one my entire life," Tyler said. "Every family dinner, every holiday, Tyler's always been the difficult one." And I believed her. I thought something was wrong with me. "There was nothing wrong with you," I said. "You were the only one who could feel the lie. She just made sure nobody would listen if you ever said it out loud." Gerald spoke from the dining room. "We need to see a lawyer. Donna and I. We need to look at the will. We need to review everything. All of it." He looked at Tammy. "And I owe you an apology that I don't have the right words for yet. But I'm going to find them." Tammy just nodded. She'd waited 24 years. She could wait a little longer for the words. I didn't ask what right meant. Right was going to take longer than one Sunday dinner to figure out. If you've ever had to block a parent's number, not out of anger but because their apology was just another move, you know this isn't easy. It's the hardest kind of quiet. But some of you already know. That quiet is where you start to hear your own voice again. A week later, my mother texted me. "Laura, I'm so sorry. I know you're hurting right now, but everything I ever did was for you. You need to know that. Please call me. I miss my daughter." I read it 3 times. Everything I ever did was for you. Not for Tammy. Not for Haley. Not for Tyler. Not for Scott. Not for the truth. For you. Even the apology was a leash. Even the "I'm sorry" was a management strategy. I blocked her number. No reply. No explanation. No final word. Some people need a door slammed. My mother needed silence, because she'd spent 26 years being the one who controlled every conversation, and the most devastating thing I could do was refuse to have one. That evening, I called Tyler. "Want to come over for pizza?" "Just pizza." "Just pizza." He showed up with a 6-pack and a socket wrench because my kitchen faucet had been dripping for 3 months. He fixed it in 11 minutes while I ordered pepperoni, and we sat on my living room floor and talked about nothing important for the first time in our lives. No agenda, no assigned seats. 3 months later, I started my first full-time position as a clinical social worker at a community health center in Southeast Portland. Small office, one window that looked out onto a parking lot and, beyond it, a line of Douglas firs. On my desk, one framed photo. Me, Haley, Tyler, Tammy, Gerald, Donna. Taken at Gerald's birthday party. The first family gathering in 24 years where everyone who was supposed to be there actually was. Haley moved to Portland in August. She got a barista job on Hawthorne and enrolled at Portland Community College part-time, pre-nursing. The education she might have had years ago if she hadn't grown up on the wrong side of my mother's system. We had dinner every Thursday at a Thai place on Division that didn't take reservations. We'd wait in line on the sidewalk and talk about nothing. TV shows, bad customer stories from the coffee shop, The guy in Haley's biology class who kept falling asleep during lectures. Normal things. Sister things. Sometimes Tyler came and ordered too much food and told electrician stories that were funnier than they should have been. Sometimes Tammy drove up from Reno. She was looking at apartments in Beaverton, testing what it felt like to live near family again after 24 years on the outside. The first time she came to Thursday dinner, she sat down and said, "Is this what normal feels like?" And nobody answered because none of us were sure yet. Gerald and Donna visited twice. The second time, Donna brought a new photo album. A small one, with space for pictures she was starting to collect. Pictures of Haley. Pictures of Tammy. Pictures she should have had all along. My relationship with Scott was complicated in the way that only matters between two people who both know what happened and are deciding, day by day, whether the damage is livable. He came to my office once, sat in the client chair, and said, "I failed you in the biggest way a father can fail." "Yeah," I said. "You did." He nodded. We sat in that for a while. Then he asked about the faucet Tyler fixed, and we talked about plumbing for 10 minutes. And somehow that was enough for now. Healing between us wasn't going to be a conversation. It was going to be 100 small, ordinary moments strung together over years, each one a little less heavy than the last. My mother sent 2 more messages before I changed my number. I didn't read them. One afternoon, a new client sat across from me, 22 years old, referred after a family crisis. She twisted the fabric of her sleeve the way people do when they've been told their whole lives that their feelings are an inconvenience. "How did you know?" she asked. "How did you know your family was lying to you?" I set down my pen. "I didn't," I said. "Not for a long time. I believed them because believing was easier than imagining that the people who were supposed to love me would build an entire world out of lies. And then one day, someone handed me a document that didn't match the story. And I had to choose between the story and the document." She looked at me. "Which one did you choose?" "The paper," I said. "Every time." My mother built a world where everything looked perfect. And I was the proof. She organized every holiday, controlled every phone call, intercepted every birthday card, and exiled the one person who could have told me the truth. She turned my brother into a scapegoat and my aunt into a ghost, and my father into a bystander. She arranged every seat at every table for 26 years. But your life is not someone else's exhibit. Your achievements are not someone else's alibi. And the moment you stop performing for the people who need you to be fine, that's when you start being real.